Hello, my name is Cathy G. Johnson. I'm a cartoonist, printmaker, and educator, and today I am going to be answering your questions. Well, kinda. So I have been invited to be part of the Austin Allies book club, and I am going to be virtually Zooming with their book club and answering all their questions about my middle school graphic novel, The Breakaways. So I am going to be only recording from my end, just like with this camera. So you won't be able to see or hear the book club members themselves, but I'll be repeating their questions and giving answers to all sorts of questions, all about the breakaways, and I hope you join us. All right, here we go. I'm a bit early. I'm nervous. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you for the invitation. Well, all right. My name is Cathy G. Johnson. I am the author of The Breakaways, as you know. I'm also a teacher, so I also teach art. I teach art to high schoolers during the school year, and in the summers I teach pre-K to 8th grade. So I teach every age throughout the whole school year. I mean, I feel like art is a really fun way of transcending. Like, I feel like everyone is able to be creative, everyone at every age. Also make paintings. There's a painting right here behind me. I also do printmaking, so I make screen prints. I also, basically, I'm also an artist as well as a teacher, and an author. And I live in Providence, Rhode Island, on the East Coast, near Massachusetts. And I grew up in Minnesota. So that's the Midwest. And I haven't been to Austin. I've been to El Paso, which is far away. It's a big state. Well, I live in the smallest state. You aren't in the biggest state. I think that Alaska wins that one, right? Yeah. So I moved from Minnesota to Rhode Island when I graduated undergrad. I just moved because I wanted to live on the East Coast. I thought the art culture was really awesome here. I had friends who lived here, and I've been here for 11 years now, so this is my home. Oh, yes. All right, so that the observation was if you see the basement scene, that's a really good observation. Yeah, I have a Black Lives Matter poster in the Breakaways, and I also have a Black Lives Matter poster on my wall. I actually painted this one, so I bet it might look like my style because I drew both of them, I suppose. Yeah, I have that hanging because I just want people to know when I'm Zooming, when I want to know everyone is welcoming to everyone, basically, is why it's here, and that's why it's in Soda Can's basement. Oh, yes, so Yara Lise speaks to her mother in Spanish on one page of the book. You know, that same question was also a question that my publisher asked me. And the question that they asked me was, we feel like this dialogue is important and we want people to understand it. And my answer was that some people speak Spanish, so some people will be able to understand it. And also what I wanted to reflect is not only for Spanish readers and Spanish speakers to feel like they have a page for them, but also for those of us who speak English. I personally only speak English. I had a couple of friends help me with that translation. We are surrounded by languages that aren't English all the time, and I feel like part of growing up and being a human, especially in America where we have a really diverse population, is maybe someone is having a conversation in a language that we don't understand, and that's okay. We don't need to listen to other people's conversations sometimes. It is a little unusual, I know, but it's only for one page, and it is kind of important dialogue. So I would be interested if someone like sat down and translated it for themselves. Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, this was actually when some graphic novels don't have page numbers, but I very specifically insisted on having page numbers because I felt like it was really important for like book clubs and like schools to be able to find a page. I try really hard throughout the book to have everyone's home life somehow present, like their family or their home or something like that, just to show a variety. 84, yes. Yeah, I think sometimes it's easy for us to, I think it's important for us to be thinking about ourselves and move through the world trying to solve our own problems. But I think being able to extend, I think that's sort of the fun of fiction, is being able to see all facets of a character, because really we only know ourselves, right? But that's sort of the fun of fiction, is that we can see the whole life of everyone in a story. Mm. Yeah, so the fantasy sequences, I think it had a lot to do with sort of thinking about being a kid, to be honest, because I feel like a lot of this book, I was teaching middle schoolers at the time, and I had a lot of middle school age students, and I feel like there's a lot of frustration about not being able to control every choice in your life. Like, you have to go to school, you have to be at home, you can't drive your own car, you don't have independence, but you're sort of growing into adolescence. You're wanting to do stuff for yourself. You want to make your own choices. And so I found it to kind of be a frustrating time, which honestly is basically what the entire book is about, is kind of how frustrating it is to be a middle schooler. And so the fantasy is she's like going on like this like adventure. She's like trying to figure out how to make her own choices in life. So that was sort of the inspiration of it. A rich interior life is sort of who Faith is as like the artist. She draws a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in 2013, that's when I started just writing the story. It started out as a script, so just text. Like, think about like a movie script where it was just text. And then I also was sketching at the same time, so kind of rough doodles. So comic books are interesting because you're drawing, and like drawing is writing. Like you're coming up with ideas as you're drawing. So it's almost like those two things are like happening at the same time. But for the sake of publishers like to be able to edit and make adjustments to stories. So they prefer to have a script because it's a lot easier to edit text before you start drawing it. It's a lot harder to start. Like, if I had a page of 4 panels and they said they didn't want one of the panels, it would be very, very difficult to like take out one panel, because then I would have to redraw one of the panels. Like, it would be a lot more work. So for the sake of publishers, I sort of focused on the text at first, but I also was drawing just none of the final art, basically just like developmental ideas. And then I sold the book, which also took place in 2014. And because publishers is just like a business, like they're looking for something to put their money into. It's an investment for them. So it can take some time, that kind of decision. And then there's like the editing process. And then by the time I was actually drawing, I think it was 2016, 2017. So it took years for like the publishing contract. It was just people in offices. They have like hundreds of other books they're working on, these things just take time. And then, but me actually drawing the book took a year and a half. which will be the pencil drawing and the ink drawing. So I started out with all the pages were originally a pencil drawing, and then I inked over them with like pens, and that was a year and a half. And then I had a colorist, Kay Chap, who did the coloring for me. I did not do the coloring, which was because I don't do digital coloring, but this is all colored on the computer. And so I just got someone who was really good at it to do it. Who also is my partner, which is very convenient. And then it came out in 2019. So I believe my part of it was done 2017, 2018, probably around then. And then you got to print the book, you got to ship the book. The book was printed in China. Then it was on a boat for a long time, which has been in the news a lot of how long those boats take, which can be months. Yeah, so that was the breakdown. I mean, at the same time, I got a master's degree, I moved, I did all sorts of stuff in my own life. I wasn't just working on this book for like 6 years solid. That was a long explanation. Oh, that's a good question. So I have 2 other books, Jeremiah and Gorgeous, which are both for mature audiences. They're for older audiences. But I decided to make the Breakaways for younger audiences because I was working with kids. I was working with middle schoolers, and I had all these cool students, and I just really wanted to make a book for them. As silly as that sounds. I just was like, I had all these cool kids, and it was like a little embarrassing to be like, to stand in front of them, because as a teacher, you have to stand, like every day is like a presentation day. It's like a lot of pressure all the time. And it was a little embarrassing to be like, I'm an author, but I can't share anything with you. I didn't like that feeling. So I wanted to be able to share a book with my students. So I wanted to make a book specifically for them. Which is actually another reason why the book has a wide range of identities as well, is because I really wanted to reflect any kid that could be in my classroom. So I wanted to make sure I had Black characters, white characters, characters who spoke Spanish, Asian characters, characters of different gender identities, characters who, some people were lower income, higher income, middle income. Like, I just wanted to be able to have lived in a house, lived in an apartment. I wanted to be able to just reflect everyone as best as I could. Yes, all my other books are all graphic novels. I have never written something in prose, although I read a lot of prose books, actually. I read a lot of graphic novels as well. This is my graphic novel shelf. You'll see there's a lot there, and there's more up there that don't quite fit. Wow, I'm confused by over here. But I read a lot of prose books as well. I read fantasy, literary fiction, all sorts of novels. Maybe someday I'll write a book in prose. I think that could be fun. Yeah, so I actually work really hard to make sure that I'm not just taking someone's life. So the people who in my real life, all my characters are inspired by myself, and also people that I know, people who are different than me. But I try really hard not to directly just copy someone, because I don't want to. This is actually really important to me too, as like, I'm a white author. I only have one specific life that I experienced. And I can't 100% reflect someone's experience that isn't mine, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not trying to write someone else's story, if that makes sense. I wanted to include characters, I wanted them to be a part of the story, but didn't want it to be like, I'm taking someone's story, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted to make sure it had like room for people to like feel empowered to write their own stories about themselves. But also, our lives are our inspiration for when you're being creative. Our lives are our inspiration, so I wanted to make sure I was pulling. I also wanted to feel realistic and have like real moments from my students or from my own childhood. So like some of the moments that my editor said didn't seem realistic, I was like, I saw this happen in real Yeah, so I mean, for now, this is the one book, because sort of the conceit of the book was this uh, soccer team, and so like once they left the soccer team, I couldn't imagine where they would go. I had this the one character that I think might be interesting to have a spin-off. This character, Warthog. I think she might be kind of interesting. She seems like she would be a very spunky teenager. Ooh, okay. I like that you have a lot of publishing questions. That's cool. It is very opaque world publishing. But the first question, why soccer, is that I had to be on a soccer team. I basically what happened to Faith is what happened to me. I signed up to be on a soccer team because a cool girl asked me to sign up. And then I wasn't on her team at all because she was on the good team and I was on the bad team. So my mom said, you signed up. I paid $75 for your uniform. You're gonna be in soccer. Yeah, so that's what Yara Lisa's mom says to her is what my mom said to me. Is you signed up for this, it was a commitment, and you have to finish it. And that was the only sports I ever did. Oh, we lost every game. It was like clearly a very impactful experience. It was my 6th grade year. It was 1 year. We lost every game, and we stood there on the field and wished it would thunder so we could go home. And then the publishing question. I've worked with all different publishers. All my books are coming out with different publishers, and this is a secret. Just announcing this week, I have a 4th book coming out with a different publisher too. So it is teens. So by the time I'm done drawing it, everyone here is might be too old for it. Because they do take a while. I'm expecting this one to take me 3 years minimum. It's been challenged by a lot of different school districts. It was on like the list. Was it Abbott who made that list? It was on his list. And also what's sort of interesting about banned books or being a banned book is that most people probably don't hear about it, I would guess. Because usually if someone takes out a book, it's usually not written about or something. Like, like if I got rid of one of my books, no one would publish it. So normally there's kind of a little bit of a political agenda, to be honest. If you hear about books being banned, it's because they're trying to say something. Yeah, so it's been school districts, it's been other places. Yes. Yeah, I'd say it's interesting how it's able to find an audience, right? Like it's able to find a bit of an audience with people who are like, oh, I want to read a book that has diverse characters in it. I want to be able to read this book. I mean, that's the most of the reason that it's challenged is that there's diverse characters. It does make me a bit sad. It makes me sad for schools where it feels like kids don't have power to be able to find the book on their own. But I do. People talk to me about it, so I think it does. I think it has found an audience. I'm not going to say thanks to being banned or in consequence of. I mean, it's funny how I really had no idea. I mean, I had no idea there might be a controversy about the book. I mean, it's also like, there aren't a lot of middle school age graphic novels that have transgender characters in it. I had no idea. Normally queer content is usually sort of isolated in the YA space, at least in graphic novels. But the editor did tell me, she said, hey, would you consider removing the transgender character? And I said no, I would not be doing that. See, here's another thing. It's also just middle school, right? So like, I feel like you don't necessarily need to have your identity figured out in middle school. So yeah, there's one transgender character who he explicitly comes out and says he's transgender. The transgender character Sammy, the editor said, I said no, I will not be removing him. And the editor said, okay, well, let's make it very clear. So that's why I say trans very clearly, I talk about pronouns very clearly, and that's because I honestly try to be a subtler writer. Like I don't want to be like clearly spelling everything out. Yeah, leaving stuff open to interpretation, because honestly, I feel like that's what middle school is all about, is like finding out who you are and changing and making new friends and moving on and growing up. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Oh, yes. I think it made me sad. And also another thing is that Sammy isn't a very big character. Like that isn't like what the story is about. It's not about transition. That's not like what it's about. It's just about kids. I wish people weren't so close-minded. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I do. So Faith's experience at the beginning of how she just signs up is sort of my experience. Otherwise, I would say my experience is more like Zoe's. The girl with like the blue hair who like hides in the library. Yeah, the one who's drawing on her arm. Yeah, I would say I'm kind of more of a Zoe. So like, she like hangs out with everyone, but isn't necessarily super close with anyone. She's like slow to make friends. I had really good friends in middle school that we went on to be good friends in high school, and then now they've kind of petered out in adulthood. But you know, I feel like another thing, making friends isn't about necessarily being friends forever with someone. It's also learning how to be a good friend. And so like, even if those specific friendships with those people haven't continued into adulthood, how I am a good friend has continued. So like, and I feel like if I see anyone, I would still be friends with them. You know, I don't need to like text them every day to know that they are part of me, you know? Ooh, oh, that's a great question. My favorite graphic novel is called Garage Band. It's by an Italian author named Gipi. Gipi. Garage Band is my absolutely favorite graphic novel. It's about kids who start a band, which does happen in this book. It is YA. I say it would be more teen oriented. His other work is kind of a bit more adult, but this one is like, this one I think is pretty appropriate for kids. It's an older title from First Second. It was actually what made me want to publish a book with First Second too. Yeah, so I'm not sure, it's probably out of print at this point, but that was a good question. Good final question. Bye everyone. Thank you so much. Bye. Well, that was it. Thank you so much for having me, Austin Allies. That was so much fun. Your book club had so many awesome, thoughtful questions, and I really was so happy and honored to be invited and to be the guest author for your book club this month. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!